Well, my name's Enrique Tarrio, and pretty sure the name is.
And are you here with the Proud Boys?
I'm here with some of my guys. Yes,
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about why you're here?
I'm here to support the people that have been here for months. And they've done an excellent job, really documenting what's been going on here. And just being out here, it's a lot calmer than what I thought. A lot calmer than what it was in 2019, 2020, 2018, for that matter. And really here, like I said, just to support them. They've done a good job, and the documenting has actually moved the needle, and we've seen that.
Yeah.
The arrests are happening, and I think that's why you don't see the A team out here, the Antifa A team out here. It's pretty much like the C team. So again, I appreciate what everybody's been doing here.
Yeah. Could you tell me a bit more, about your positions, or what are the Proud Boys' positions on ICE and immigration?
Oh, we support it fully. As a matter of fact, I know some of my guys have applied. So I don't know what their status is, but I think we're very supportive of ICE. And one of the reasons why we're supportive of ICE more than any other Fed agency, I mean, we'd love to abolish the FBI, but we believe that the government's only role when it comes to policing things in this country should be when it comes to enemies, foreign and domestic. And in order to do that, and I'm not saying like all immigrants are enemies, foreign enemies, but the problem is you can't, without a secure border, you can't have that accountability that's needed to fight those enemies.
Sorry, can you tell me a little bit about you said something, the FBI. Why do you feel like we should abolish the FBI?
I think the FBI has not worked for anybody since the beginning, since Hoover started it. We've seen them use their power, and they use their power depending on who's in office. And I think even my counterparts on the other side would agree with me. They're probably not happy with how the FBI is running under Trump. I think the FBI under Trump is better, but I still don't think it's good.
Yeah.
Better doesn't mean good. And I think it's an unnecessary agency to have. If anything, like I said, the military and DHS are two federal agencies that should exist. U.S. Marshals also, but I think organizations like FBI are pretty fucking useless.
Hey everyone, if you appreciate this interview and the work that I'm doing, please subscribe and consider supporting me on Patreon or Substack. All of this content and journalism is only made possible by you. I'm keeping everything open to the public for now, but know that your support goes a long way.
I'm curious, you talked about securing the border. What are your thoughts on asylum seekers coming here? Your opinions on it?
I think it should be done at and I think that's how it happens. It's a case by case basis. There has to be some evidence to support that claim. And I think if it's for asylum, I think I'd be a little bit more open to it. I can't tell you that I know exactly how the process works. I don't think there's many people that can tell you how the process works. Everybody wants to be binary and be like, oh, we do it this way. So I think, if you have a legitimate claim for asylum, maybe some residency would solve that.
Yeah. What about
But we see those systems get abused all the time too. So there has to be a way we can slow down the abuse. It'll never be a zero.
What about I think the DHS statistics were saying that 70% of people in detention don't have criminal records. Is that in the ICE detention? Does that? Do you feel like that's bad? That's the number's that high, or do you think that makes sense? Or
wait, say it again.
That number's that high.
Well, the thing is, look, obviously we would want to take those criminals out first, but I think just crossing the border is a misdemeanor, and I think that should be dealt with also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
maybe on a later date, then we start seeing asylum situations.
So you feel like that's okay that we have that many people in there that are
Yeah, I'm totally okay with that.
okay. Could you tell me, like, you feel so it's because they came here over the border illegally? And that's the main reason.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What about people that are like contributing to the economy and stuff?
Look, I would love to say yes, but in doing that, then you'll see the political levers use that, and I think that look, I wholeheartedly think that there's a lot of good people that are working, but they got to go back.
Yeah.
They got to go back.
Do you feel is that because you feel like? Yeah, can you explain that more? The political levers, what you mean by that?
Yeah, the political levers, like if we keep doing that and we keep saying, well, if they're working, they can stay. Again, look, you could be appreciative and be like, hey, look, it's awesome that you're working, but you came in here illegally. Do it the right way. Maybe later on down the future, there might be room for it, but I don't see it right now. I think we've allowed this to happen for so long. We have to bury the needle in the opposite direction and then correct course.
I'm curious because what about the how difficult the process is for a lot of people to come here? Do you think that we should?
It should be easier, more streamlined.
Yeah,
I'm going to use that word. I think it should be more streamlined. But again, I'm of the mind that I think that we should bury that needle now. I think we should bury that needle now and then later revisit those options.
What about people that felt like it was they were trying to come here to build a better life before? Do you feel like that's unfair to them that they're sent back? Or?
I mean, I think it emotionally it sounds bad,
yeah.
Right? But I think if you're being rational, you need equality in that system, and I think that brings true equality in that system. And again, look, I feel for them, but if they don't have an asylum claim, I think they should go back. I can't control people. Humanely. I think having detention centers that aren't transportation hubs, I think, is counterproductive. I think if you catch them, deport them, and it should be a very quick process if they're not a criminal.
Gotcha. I mean, I think there's been a lot of concern around, even Obama opened child detention centers. Do you take issue with stuff like that, or the mistreatment that people have
Yeah,
in facilities?
Look, that's one thing as an inmate, as a former inmate.
Yeah.
I do see it, and I think it does have to be humane. It does have to be quick. When it comes to the kids, there is some question on who they go back to sometimes, so that becomes difficult. Do we keep them? If we can't find their homes over there, can we put them in foster homes? So I'm open to that.
Yeah, I think that's something that I've seen people talk about is there's with Venezuela in particular, there's a lot of stuff that obviously Maduro is horrible and a dictator and commits lots of human rights violations, but the U.S. also does a lot of things like sanctions that kill a lot of people. What about there's people that come up to the U.S. because they're fleeing situations that are sometimes caused by U.S. interventions in these countries.
Yeah, look, and
I have to face the same thing.
I don't know.
Those are two problems that require two separate solutions. And to give you a solution, if the U.S. would stop intervening in situations, I think we wouldn't have that problem. If we would stop intervening in Middle East situations and the war in Ukraine, I think that then you don't have to worry about so many asylum seekers at that point. Again, I'm open to it, after the fact. But if it's a U.S.-made problem, I think the crux of the problem, you need to cut it at the root, and the root of that problem comes in from our intervention in those countries. So.
Reflecting on this interview, I have to say that Tarrio was surprisingly easy to talk to and more measured than a lot of the right-wingers that I've spoken with. However, I still think it's worth providing some deeper context and analysis here. One point that really stuck out to me is that Tarrio wants ICE detention centers to be more like transportation hubs, deporting people very rapidly. He frames this as a more humane option given the widely documented instances of mistreatment at these detention centers, but I don't really think it's that simple. Speeding up the process of deportations, likely using Trump's expanded expedited removal, presents a greater risk to the rights of immigrants in this country and also could lead to certain logistical hurdles. It also means that people with rightful claims to be here will probably slip through the cracks. Of note, I brought up the asylum seeker question because this group is often overlooked, and mass deportations present a serious threat to their safety. Using expedited removal against them would also likely be a violation of international law, something that the US is unfortunately very familiar with. In essence, this idea of turning detention centers into transit hubs could produce chaos and significant legal challenges. It will also almost certainly get people killed, or at the bare minimum lead to serious human rights violations. The other thing I wanted to talk about is this concept of burying the needle, or getting rid of all the undocumented immigrants so we can start fresh and fix the process.
I think we've allowed this to happen for so long. We have to bury the needle in the opposite direction and then fix the correct course.
First, many don't know that we once buried the needle, so to speak, but using a different method. Ronald Reagan, essentially the good old boy of the Republican Party, granted amnesty to 3 million undocumented immigrants. Now, there were many stipulations on this and still a process that people had to go through, but by today's standards, this is a relatively pro-immigrant thing to do. How we've gone from that to mass deportations is a topic for a whole other video, but you should subscribe because I have a backlogged interview with an immigration expert talking about this topic, so stay tuned. Anyways, this conservative desire to deport all the undocumented immigrants would also lead to massive economic costs. I say this not to discount the horrors that this will inflict upon millions of people, but to show that this is not necessarily a fiscally responsible thing to do. If you want some more info on that, go subscribe to my Substack, Last Week in Hell, and read this article. The last thing I'll say is that I've never heard a Republican, or really most Democrats, provide an actual plan for how to fix our immigration process. We can say that we want to make the process easier and that immigration is good, but it doesn't really mean anything if nobody lays out how we're actually going to do it. Even under Biden, there were frightening conditions for migrants at the border, and the Democrats didn't really talk about it. And with the Dems shifting dramatically to the right on immigration in the last election, it really feels like there is no plan. Instead, we just kind of continue perpetuating human suffering. And in case you're wondering, yes, I wish I'd asked Tarrio about this in the interview, but it's not every day that you're talking to the leader of a militant extremist group, so forgive me. But that's all for now. Let me know in the comments what other stuff you'd like to see from me, perhaps a video on some of the proposed solutions to fix our immigration system. And please subscribe and share this so that I can keep offering more powerful reporting from the streets and my living room.